Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 19th edition of Williamson County School Board meeting. Board members, if you could go ahead and record your attendance. All right, great. Everyone's here. We'll first have our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led tonight by Deputy Stephen Brogdon, and then please remain standing for a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first item is to approve the agenda, but there is one change and one that we, at the work session, decided to pull off. It's under new business 7K6, attendance, policy 6.200 attendance. So we'll remove that one. As we said, we had decided to do that at the work session. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda? We have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye opposed. Okay. When we approve the agenda, we approve the consent agenda items, and we approve the May 15th, 2017 school board meeting minutes. We approve the board policies on second reading, 5.1064, discipline procedures for classified personnel. We approve board policy 6.702, student clubs, activities, and organizations. We approve the recommendations for field trip fee requests. We approve the PECA Memorandum of Understanding. We approve the Ravenwood High School girls' locker room improvements. And that was it for our consent agenda. The next item up is items of particular public interest, and the first thing is public comment. We have two people who have signed up to speak this evening. We can go maybe a little over 3 minutes if board members are okay with that. All right, our first speaker is Daniela Kuntz.
Good evening. I'm Daniela Kuntz. I live at 132 Cavalry Drive, Franklin, Tennessee. I'm here to attend your board meeting again. I haven't been able to do so for 2 months, and it's good to see you all. Thank you for everything you do, all the good things. And I just wanted to come here quickly and just kindly remind you all of the policies that I would like to see, and also parents who have actually brought forth some concerns and they wanted to see them addressed, and it would be great to see that it's all comprised in policies in future. I am going to read a few of the policies here that we would like to see happen. Including the yearly district budget, a dedicated item post showing sufficient funds for hiring extra contract workers for paint jobs or other indoor air polluting works for when schools are closed and children are not in the buildings. I kindly asked our county commissioners to grant you extra funds for this on several occasions, and early this year again too. And the second item is any emergency works needed are to be done in a way as to not expose the students from health-harming substances. Certify that indoor air pollutants will not pose a risk. Inform parents how their children will be kept safe. And then the third one is, if indoor air quality is in jeopardy and the repair remodeling work cannot be done in a manner to not pollute indoor air and learning space, inform every parent of that school and dismiss children, treat and proceed as emergency situation. Notify parents of all students a few days ahead of time when a planned remodeling, repair, paint job must be done in their school to arrange alternative safety plans for the children's welfare. Please do not allow for the hiring or the volunteering of high school students to paint hallways or perform other such health-harming jobs in schools. Assess indoor air and rooms in schools are free of chemical smells and fumes or other health-harming substances before students go back to school classes. We ask to keep students safe from any pain, chemical fumes, mist, scents, and exposures, even if products label claim to be non-toxic, green seal, low or zero VOC, etc. Those labels are often misleading, unfortunately. Health teams need to know how to identify and signal a problem right away to prevent children from being exposed to health-damaging substances in the learning facilities. And I must say, in the school where my son goes, Page Middle School, it's been great. I mean, the principal and everybody there has been calling me if something was up, and I was able to keep my son home, and they really looked out for him. So I must really make a shout out to that school. Assess and allow only thoroughly trained professionals to perform cleaning duties with chemicals and in a manner as to not expose children in any way. Children can clean without chemicals. And what I think is also very important, and also a lot of parents, yearly training, teaching schools, officials, and district employees, workers, how to provide and maintain a safe indoor air in schools, and the importance to not expose children to chemicals, not even for cleanup tasks, to make sure every employee in the school district is aware and adhering to these new school policies. That's all. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Our next speaker is R. Drew Thomas.
Thank you. I'm Drew Thomas, 113 Saddlebridge Lane in Franklin. Thank you all for the work that you do for the welfare of our children. I have some information to share and a concern to voice about the artificial field installations at Brentwood and Franklin High Schools and others that are on your radar. I think they're great ideas. When you've got a student body population that's growing and real estate that isn't, it's a perfect solution to provide everybody use of the field. However, I believe the use of crumb rubber as a soil substitute on these fields is a mistake of proportions that is going to come to light within the next couple of years. For those of you who don't know what crumb rubber is, it is ground up. It's a soil substitute distributed on top of the field after the artificial blades of grass are installed, and it gets down in between the blades, and it acts as a soil substitute for the kids playing on the field. It's made out of ground up car and truck tires, and it contains a laundry list of hazardous chemicals. The tires do, two of which are known carcinogens. So these little black dots, you may have heard about them. There is a movement that's happening. The little black dots end up in the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, throat, hair, socks, shoes, uniforms, underwear, helmets, equipment, gym bags, locker rooms, cars, and houses of the student athletes. And most importantly, in the cuts and bandages of our children. And then thereby the concern is for the bloodstream. So much of this stuff walks off of the field, just like on any playground or ball field. Well, not necessarily any other ball field, but like a mulch on a playground, that regular maintenance, field maintenance, and bringing in a fresh crumb rubber is required to keep the depth of it to a specific depth to allow for absorption of concussion. You know, the sports industry concerns, or the game industry, game injury concerns. So the alarm for this was first sounded just a few years ago by a Seattle soccer coach who saw an alarming number of her soccer players developing blood cancers, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. These are 20-year-old girls. That's an old man's disease, a middle-aged man's disease, excuse me. This is about to be a big concern. I understand from talking with Rick Wimberly that when y'all are making these plans, that questions were made to the manufacturers about these sports injuries. I don't know why I can't say that tonight. But nothing was brought up about the health concerns of the rubber crumble. And that does not surprise me that the field manufacturers are not going to tell you about this. But your landscape architect failed you, and thereby the community, because this stuff is dangerous. Now, I'm going to give you quick info on me that will bring credence to what I'm telling you. I'm a registered landscape architect with 23 years of experience in park and recreation planning and development. I spent the year of 2014 in a chemo chair battling non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. In early 2015, I received a stem cell transplant, and I had a 50% chance. And so I'm here. I'm blessed. So I believe that what I'm trying to convey to you, if I don't break down in tears while I'm trying to say it, is that I believe I'm here to, I believe I got skin in the game. You know, I know what I'm talking about. This is my wheelhouse. I'm scripted here, so, and I've got my wife's proxy for an extra couple minutes, so bear with me. This is important. Amid the outcry of this crumb rubber fiasco, municipalities are pulling their plans to install this. There are options. I'm not here to just complain. I'm here to tell you there's an easy solution to this. There are other products that are natural or organic, perhaps a little more costly, but don't have the chemicals that these ground up tires have. So parents started making noise about it. Municipalities are hearing them, prohibiting it from being specified, removing shredded tire mulch from their kids' playgrounds. I'm sure that you all have seen some of this. It was about 6 years ago it came on the market, and then it's just been going away as quickly as it showed up. So all of the studies that were done to date were paid for by the groups that had vested interest in the outcome, you know, the turf councils, and that's just the way business works. But the EPA is hearing this parent outcry. So the Environmental Protection Agency, the CDC's National Center for Environmental Health, Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, and the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Council launched a full investigation February 12th of 2016. That investigation is ongoing through the summer of 2017, the hot months, the hot sun on the rubber, on the fields. So we're in the midst of it. You know, the red flags are waving on this thing. The kids are going to get this stuff all over them if we do it. The parents are going to start to talk. The EPA study is going to come out. Parents are going to start to talk amongst themselves. There's going to be a Facebook page about it. People are going to start complaining. And God forbid, one child's going to get sick. And if that child is so much as set foot on one of the fields, you know what's going to happen. It's lawyers are going to come out of the woodwork. And, you know, I can't predict the future, but that's a realistic scenario here. The health of the children should be our motivating concern, not the fact that there's going to be lawyers crawling all over us. It's got all the markings and the nationwide undercurrents of a great new, this is the best thing since sliced bread. We can take care of all these old tires we got, ground them up, and put them on the field, but it's going to turn disastrous. That's my prediction, just from where I'm standing.
Okay, Mr.
I mean,
Thomas,
asbestos.
Mr. Thomas, can you wrap up, please?
Sure. Asbestos, lead paint, Roundup weed killer. It's the same industry. You get the idea. I guess I'll wrap it up with that, but with one thing. From a tire manufacturer standpoint, Michelin's homepage says we have over 200 specialty ingredients in our tires. They're looking at it from road safety, not from what's in there. You can't pronounce, I mean, I had a list of 35 I was hoping to read off to you and then say the option is coconut husk that's ground up, and that's the only ingredient in it. So I implore you, please issue a change order at Brentwood High School before you do this, you know, and take a look at the specifications for Franklin High School. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that ends our public comments section. Next item is communications to the board. Superintendent's report. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. I do have a packet that will go to you tomorrow in relationship to the speaker. There are a number of studies out. Obviously, there are studies on both sides of this issue. Before we install that surface at Nolensville High School, we did our due diligence, and I'm just going to give you the researchers. I think there's 10 studies I'll send you tomorrow. So, with that being said, we're in the process of all of our summer work. Things are going well. We're staffing. We're under construction in many, many areas, and things are going well. That completes my report. I'm going to have Mrs. Birdsong come forward and recognize some wonderful staff members and students.
Thank you, Dr. Looney. Board members, we have more students to celebrate, and we are going to start with perfect ACT scores. These are from the April testing time, and we have 4 students who earned a perfect ACT composite score during that testing time. This is Brandon Hunn from Brentwood High School. This is Kobe Warkington, also from Brentwood. From Independence High School, this is Maxwell Coyle, and this is Clara Miller from Ravenwood High School. This young lady is Priscilla Kirkpatrick. She attends Franklin High School, and she was elected the governor of Volunteer Girls State. Now on to athletics. We have 13 spring fling high school state championships and 1 middle school one to share. We'll start with Brentwood High School and their boys baseball team. They won in Class 3A. Their coach is Bill Moore. In tennis, this is Sam Fisher from Brentwood High School. He is your boys tennis singles champ, Class 3A. His coach is Bill Jane. Also, this is Summer Henry from Brentwood High School. You may remember these are repeat state champions. Summer won in girls tennis singles, Class 3A. Bill Jane, again, their coach. In doubles, A.V. Calhoun and Georgia Fisher from Brentwood High School, doubles Class 3A. And from Brentwood High School, the girls tennis team were your state champions in Class 3A. Again, Bill Jane, their coach. From Page High School, this is Sarah Bracken, and she is the girls tennis singles champion in Class Single and AA. Eric Barnes, her coach. Page High School, again represented in boys track and field, discus throw, Donald Johnson, Kerry Vitucci, and Gary Maddox, Donald's coach. From Brentwood High School, this is Catherine Coffey. Catherine actually won 2 state championships in track and field this year. This one is for shot put, and this one is for discus throw. Ronnie Sigenthaler is her coach. From Independence High School, this is Addie Coggins. She is your 1,600-meter run state champion. Jason Byram, her coach. From Page High School, Mary Leichner, your track and field pole vault champion, Kerry Vitucci, and Gary Maddox, her coach. Ravenwood High School's Riley White, state champion in the 400-meter dash in Class 3A. And from Ravenwood High School as well, this is the 4x400-meter relay team made up of Kiera Carter, Caroline Groves, May Hanley, and Riley White. The Ravenwood coaches are head coach Pete Mueller and assistant coaches Ryan Fowler, John Hardaway, Joel Love, Joan Obit, and Ricky Sierra. Last but not least, we have a middle school state champion from Fairview Middle School. This is Logan Parsons, and Logan is your state champion in the 400-meter run. His coach is Preston Brooks. Now on to Jitani Rao from Brentwood Middle School. Jitani won the Tennessee Department of Transportation's Aeronautics Division Aviation Art Contest for the 3rd year in a row. Staff spotlights. This is Deborah Bond. Deborah teaches at Summit High School, and she was selected as an NEA Foundation Global Learning Fellow. Only a few in the nation are selected. And last but not least, your communications department just found out today that we have been honored with a Golden Achievement Award by the National School Public Relations Association for our series of public service announcements, Be a Friend, Step In, done in partnership with Be Nice and the Bullying Prevention Advisory Council. Shout out to Corey Mason and Steve Cheser, who headed that up for us, and a shout out to Dr. Farmer and to Becky Mitchell, who, through their work, connected Be Nice and the Bullying Prevention Advisory Council so that we could spread this message. Congrats to all of our students and staff.
Anything else, Dr. Looney?
So that completes my report.
Anyone have any questions for Dr. Looney? Okay, I see none. The next item is the board chairman's report, and I just wanted to thank the board and administration. In recent memory, this is the first year I can remember we had so many meetings, dealt with so many major issues, and we made it through. And for that, you're going to get a reward not having to come to a meeting in July. Okay? Now, we have no scheduled meetings for July, but I want to thank everybody, the board administration, for, we went through rezoning, strategic plan, Let's Talk Schools, and we had so many meetings, and I'm really appreciative of the way the board worked together with administration to get us through this school year. We had some tremendous academic achievements and obviously athletic achievements in arts, so we've had a great year, and I just want to take my time tonight to say thank you very much. It was a great school year, and we're all looking forward to moving into next year. So take July to enjoy it with your families and come back ready to go in August for another great school year. So thank you. If anyone had any questions for me? Whew, good. Okay. All right. Next item is unfinished business, which we have none. So new business, the 2016-17 school board budgets. The first one is intra-category budget transfer, general purpose school fund amendment. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. I do recommend approval of this amendment. This is finalizing the school year, putting all the money in the appropriate accounts.
Okay, anyone like to make a motion? We have a motion from Dr. Burgos. Second from Ms. Emerson. Any discussion? Okay, we have Dr. Looney's recommendation. If you go ahead and record your votes.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next one is intra-category budget transfer, Central Cafeteria School Fund Amendment. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. As you know, this is a self-sustaining fund paid for by student fees for eating meals. This is, once again, to transfer the appropriate amount of money into the appropriate line items to close the year out.
Okay, anyone like to make a motion on this one? We have a motion for approval from Ms. Emerson. Anyone like to second it? Second from Ms. Durham. Any discussion? Okay, I see none. We have the director's recommendation. If you go ahead and record your votes at this time, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, board. The next one is intra-category budget transfer, extended school program fund amendment. Dr. Looney.
Same thing that I've said in the last two amendments is appropriate. This is for the extended school program fund, which is also a self-sustaining fund.
Okay. Anyone like to make a motion on this one? We have a motion for Mr. Cash. Like to second it? Second. I saw Ms. Durham's hand. Any discussion on this one? Okay, we have the director's recommendation. If you go ahead and record your votes then, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, board. Next one is intra-category amendment for Page High School. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. We had money set aside to improve the practice football field at Page High School. With the master plan and the potential upgrades to the facility, we're approaching the life expectancy of that money sitting in the account due to arbitrage. We're asking that you allow us to move that money to the appropriate account and do all of that work at once.
Okay. Anyone like to make a motion on this one?
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Ms. Garrett, and we have A second from Ms. McGraw. Any discussion on this one? Okay, I see none. We have Dr. Looney's recommendation. If you go ahead and record your votes, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Next item is General Purpose School Fund Budget Amendment, appropriating $106,000 from field trip revenues to bus driver salaries. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. As it states here, this is from field trip revenue, which students pay fees for, to put into bus driver salaries. We need to make this transfer because the pay raise that was provided to the bus drivers during the year.
Anyone like to make a motion on this one? We have a motion for Ms. Emerson and a second from Mr. Hall. Any discussion? Okay, I see none. You have the director's recommendation. If you'd go ahead and record your votes then, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next one is General Purpose School Fund Budget Amendment, appropriating $4,000 for the Wilcos. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Dr. Qualls for the outstanding job as it relates to the Wilco Awards. We have a generous sponsor, Walker Chevrolet, who is going to help pay for that, and this is the money coming in from that. I do appreciate your support.
Anyone like to make a motion for this one? We have a motion from Ms. Durham, a second from Ms. Cleveland. Any discussion? Okay, I see none. You have the director's recommendation. If you would record your votes, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. All right. Our attorneys have advised that we need to move B1 to the end and vote on that in just a minute. If we could please go to B2, the 2017-2018 General Purpose School Fund Resolution on Split Log Elementary School Construction Intent to Fund. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. The Split Log Road Elementary School bids have come in a little bit higher than expected. This allows us to complete the work. Construction is ongoing at Split Log.
Okay, we have a motion for that one. I'll move for approval on that one. Second by Dr. Burgos. Any discussion? Okay, I see none. If you go ahead and record your votes then, you have Dr. Looney's recommendation.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
All right, thank you. The next one is 2017-2018 General Purpose School Fund Resolution Budget Reduction. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. As you know, this has been a very challenging budget year. After extensive conversation with the mayor, we have determined that in order to get a budget passed through the county commission without imposing a tax increase on the citizens of Williamson County for the upcoming year, it will require an additional budget reduction. I do recommend approval of this reduction.
Okay, do we have a recommendation on this one? Motion from Mr. Cash, second from Ms. Durham. Any discussion on this? Ms. Garrett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would ask for a point of clarification here. The reduction in the cost of the insurance, Dr. Looney, would you please explain that?
Yes, ma'am. There's been some confusion in the public domain that insurance coverage is going to be declining or that cost to employees is going to increase, and neither of those is true. When the budgeting process first began, almost a year ago now, we were informed by the county commission that our insurance cost, because we're a self-funded insurance company essentially, that our claims cost had risen, and we would need to adjust the premium that we pay to the county per employee from $10,000 to $11,500, so a $1,500 increase. As we progress through the budgeting process, and the mayor and I, having had multiple discussions, we agreed that claims had not risen or had stabilized and not risen to $1,500 additional per head. So we have reached a compromise position of $10,600 per employee for the upcoming year. So that's, and honestly, that covers most of the reduction. Does not increase cost to employees. It does not reduce coverage to employees. And if any of those things were to happen, that would not happen until January in the new year anyway. So this, at this point in time, this has nothing to do with cost to employees or coverage.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Dr. Looney. Dr. Burgos?
Thank you, Mr. Excuse me. Is that okay?
We're good.
Okay. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Looney because he has spent endless hours getting this, and he even said at our work session it's been the most difficult budget process in his tenure here. And so I wanted to thank you for your endless hours of work on this. I appreciate them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McGraw?
I'll decline. I'm going to pass. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Wimberly?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, in voting for approval of the budget amendment, I have a relative employed by the school system. I certify that my vote about to be cast in this matter is in the best interest of the school system.
Thank you, sir. We record that in the minutes. Anyone else? Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you. Like Mr. Wimberly, I too have a relative employed by the school system, and I certify that my vote about to be cast on the budget amendment is also in the best interest of the school system.
Thank you, sir. We'll make sure that's included in the minutes as well. Any other questions or discussion points? Okay, I see none. We have the director's recommendation. If you'd go ahead then and record your votes on this item.
Your vote is 11 yes, 1 no.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a moment of privilege, please?
Yes, sir.
Board members, I think it's really important for us all to go into this next year eyes wide open. We can't do this again. I will tell you, we have depleted our reserve fund over the last couple of years. We need additional revenue in order to keep this business afloat. We were able to pull this off this year, but I would be doing you a disservice if I told you that we can continue to do business as usual in the upcoming years. It's just not possible. So I wanted you to know that.
Thank you, sir. Board, if we'll go back now to B1, the 2017-2018 General Purpose School Fund Resolution, funding of 2% raise. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, the county decided that they wanted to offer a 2% raise to all employees. That includes school personnel. We don't have enough money to put it in the budget, so we will do a budget amendment in order to do that because we have to have a 3% fund balance to get the budget approved by the state. So assuming the budget gets approved as we have now submitted it to the county, we will at that same meeting go in with a budget amendment to pay the 2% pay increase for the employees. I do recommend approval of that as well.
Thank you, sir. Anyone like to make a motion on this one? We have a motion for approval from Mr. Wimberly. Would like to second this? Mr. Haas second the motion. Any comments, questions? Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'd like to state that in voting for approval of this budget amendment, I have a relative employed by the school system, and I certify that my vote to be cast on this matter is in the best interest of the school system.
Thank you, sir. And we'll record that in the minutes. Mr. Wimberly?
I guess ditto wouldn't be appropriate, would it? So, in voting for approval of the budget amendment, I have a relative employed by the school system. I certify that my vote about to be cast in this matter is in the best interest of the school system.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments or questions? Mr. Galbraith.
Dr. Looney, if you don't mind, you have a lot more direct communication with the mayor and with the commission, but I would respectfully like to ask that we not have to play these games again. I mean, we obviously don't have the money. We just had to cut the budget, and now we're raising. I'm all for paying the teachers, right? Give them the raise and all of our employees a 2% raise along with the rest of the county. But having to play these games where we're approving this amendment that we know we don't have money for in the budget, that's going to reduce our fund balance that we already used to pay $20 million of our fund balance to pay next year's budget is really ridiculous. I mean, I would personally like to see a one-time increase to allow us to replenish our fund balance, and then we can use that, and then we can start using that. But if you could pass that along, if not on the board's behalf, on my behalf, but I think I don't know if I speak for the board or not, but I see a lot of heads nodding. It's really disconcerting having to play these games.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I see none. We have a recommendation from the director. If you go ahead and record your votes.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, board. Our next item is approval of the 2017-2018 pay schedules. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, this is just formalizing the pay schedules for our employees for the upcoming year. Do recommend approval.
We have a motion for approval. We have a motion from Ms. Durham, second from Mr. Mitchell. Any questions, discussions? Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I state that in voting for approval of this budget amendment and the pay schedule, I have a relative employed by the school system, and I certify that my vote on this matter is in the best interest of the district.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wimberly.
And in voting for approval of the budget amendment, I have a relative employed by the school system. I certify that my vote about to be cast on this matter is in the best interest of the school system.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I see none. We have the director's recommendation. If you'd go ahead and record your votes, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you very much. Next item is interlocal agreement with the City of Brentwood. Dr. Looney.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to begin by just sincerely thanking the City of Brentwood officials. In my mind, they are an exemplar of a partner in this educational process that we're engaged in. They invariably always step up to the plate and provide assistance to us, as do some of our other municipalities. In this particular case, we had a funding challenge that we couldn't overcome, and I went to the City of Brentwood officials and asked them for support, and they gladly found a way to provide a support of $2.4 million. This is the interlocal agreement that's associated with their contribution for the construction of some improvements at Middle Brentwood High School. I do recommend your approval.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion on? We have a motion for Ms. Cleveland, second by Ms. Emerson. Any discussion on this one? Ms. Garrett.
Another point of clarification. This motion does not contractually bind us to zoning for an X number of years, correct? There are no zoning parameters associated with this.
No, ma'am. Actually, when the conversation initially began, the city was advocating for Plan A. The board has already approved Plan A and did so before this agreement was ratified, or at least by the city of Brentwood. You will ratify it tonight. So there is no agreement, there's no guarantee for permanent zoning of any residents in that specific community. Thankfully, you have gone through the rezoning process, and hopefully we won't have to revisit that anytime soon. But there is no promise or expectation that those families will remain in a specific school.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other discussion? Okay, I see none. You have the director's recommendation. If you'd please record your votes at this time.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next item is 7E, authorization for interlocal agreement with City of Franklin for Henpeck Sewer. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Just as with the city of Brentwood, the city of Franklin has offered to step up to the plate and to help us get the sewer that we have so desperately needed for the Henpeck area property for a middle school. Very pleased with what the city has done. They have agreed to pay 50% of the sewer cost. I believe this is a really good overture on their part, and for the benefit of all of our community, I think this is the right thing to do. I do recommend your approval.
Okay, we have the director's recommendation. Anyone like to make a motion? We have a motion for Mr. Cash. I'd like to second it. We have a second for Mr. Mitchell. We have Mr. Cash would like to speak to this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to piggyback what Dr. Looney said. I'd like to thank all the officials, county officials, our superintendent, our staff, the Franklin city officials and aldermen that I've spoken with. I believe a rezoning like we've had in District 2 and 3 and 11 just kind of opened the eyes to many, many people. And this decade-long search for a sewer in a middle school, I think, is really opening up now, and the eyes have been open, and I appreciate each and everyone's input in this, especially parents. They came out in droves, and they've supported us, and I appreciate that. This is the future of America, and these children are, and thank you for your dedication to them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Haw.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to provide warning to the folks in Sullivan Farms, Dallas Downs, Polk Place, the surrounding areas, to be sitting down if they're watching this meeting and before the vote. This is a long time coming, and a lot of people are really hopeful this happens as soon as possible. So I appreciate the efforts from you, the staff, and certainly the City of Franklin.
Mr. Golden.
Wanted to point out to the board and anyone who's watching from the public, in addition, the City of Franklin will actually be doing the construction, and they have a 36-month timetable for the construction. Want to make sure you're all aware of that. It's a pretty substantial project.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you. Mr. Golden, could you clarify that 36-month time frame? Is that to begin or to complete?
It's for the entire process. So the discussions we had with the city is that our goal is for them to have that sewer complete and be able to attach to a school for the fall of 2000 and let's see, I'm losing my perspective now, 2020. So that was the timetable we gave them. Of course, the timetable that the schools operate on is year by year as school years start. So when we need something, we need it for the start of a school year, not sometime in the middle of a school year, especially for a new school opening.
And at the risk of boxing you in here, is it our intention to wait until the sewer line is complete before we look at construction there, or are we considering running a parallel project?
We anticipating running it parallel to some degree. Construction of a new middle school will not take a full 36 months for us, so that is something that we expect to be doing concurrently in the later stages of their project.
Thank you.
Mr. Galbraith.
I withdraw. That was my question.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I see none. You have the director's recommendation. If you'd go ahead and record your votes.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
The next item is authorization to purchase land for sewer field lines to serve Page Middle and High Schools. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. I think this speaks for itself. We want to buy land to put sewer so we can expand Page Middle and Page High. We've identified land. We need your permission to do so.
Anyone like to make a motion for that? We have a motion from Ms. McGraw. Would you like to second? We have a second from Ms. Garrett. Any discussion on this one? Ms. McGraw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to recognize all the massive amounts of work that have gone into getting to this point by the staff, countless negotiations and talks with landowners. And we know the Page community just wants to see dirt being moved and that it feels like nothing has been happening, when in reality there's been a lot happening for a very long time, even though it's not always visible. So I'm really excited that we've gotten to this point and want to thank everyone for the work that they've done to get us here, and we're ready to see dirt move someday soon. Thank you.
Real soon.
Think September.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Wimberly.
I'd just like to add, it was not that long ago that we felt that this was insurmountable, yet it got surmounted. Is that a word? Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Galbraith.
And one last thing, we approved a 5-year capital plan last November.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
That was presented to the county commission in January.
Yes, sir.
And so I would suggest to those that say, well, this project wasn't even on the 5-year capital plan, they're absolutely right. But as we did our due diligence before we do any plan, the more we get into it, because for public consumption, the plan was to take money and to buy land to build a middle and high school campus in that Carruthers corridor to alleviate Page. And so what we've done is we've saved millions of dollars and not having to do that yet. We're still asking for the money to do that later and to buy the land now so that we don't have to pay tomorrow's land prices. But it's one of those things that happens. The plans absolutely do change, but I think it was in the spirit of our 5-year capital plan that we would have done this had we had this opportunity even remotely been possible. So I appreciate you not just sticking to the plan because that's what we said we were going to do, but doing the right thing and figuring out a way to do this.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make a comment or discussion?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure everyone's aware we still have some state approvals to go through on that TDEC, et cetera. So we're still going through that process.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I see no other discussion. If you go ahead and record your votes, you do have the director's recommendation.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, Board. The next item is Memorandum of Understanding with Williamson County Government on Sales Tax. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. I know that we've discussed this in great detail, but I'd like to take just a minute and explain it to the public because this is a televised meeting. The proposed Memorandum of Understanding with the county is so that if a sales tax is authorized by the citizens of Williamson County, you would agree to set aside the increased portion of the sales tax that the schools get for debt service for new construction for schools. So you're not advocating for a sales tax, you're not agreeing to a sales tax, you're not passing a sales tax. You're saying that if the citizens vote a sales tax in, that you would agree to take the increased revenue from that sales tax and use it for debt service exclusively for 3 years. After that 3-year period, it would then be released because by law, we typically use our sales tax revenue collections for operational dollars. The thinking would be that hopefully our surrounding municipalities would contribute and participate as well, so that we could take a very large chunk of revenue to pay down some of the tremendous debt service that we're going to be incurring if we are able to get our $500 million worth of capital construction underway.
Okay, anyone like to make a motion on that one? We have a motion for approval for Mr. Wimberly. Anyone like to second it? I heard that side for Angela. Ms. Durham? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Galbraith?
I'd like to move to defer to our August meeting, or to set, well, move to defer to August. I simply, I don't understand this request, and I don't believe we have been given ample information to support the fact that we need 66 some odd $1 million going towards a debt service fund, from which the capital that we've requested does not require that amount of debt service, much less the debt service that the city of Brentwood has contributed to. The $2 million is going, 2.4 million is going directly to debt service, and to cover the next 2 years of the Brentwood project. And the county commission has given its intentions, or at least they've proposed to give the mayor the ability to use the impact fee for debt service. Now you've got the impact fee that we don't know how much that's going to bring in, I get it. But we're proposing to take dollars that are already allocated to operating the schools to the operations general fund. And the mayor is asking us, before it's been discussed at the county commission, because I called a couple of county commissioners and they said that this hasn't been before them or any of their committees. And they were like, will you send me a copy so I can tell you, so I can figure out what it is? And I understand the urgency, I really do. If they're wanting to get a sales tax referendum on the ballot. But I don't know if they're going to do that in July or not. And I feel like I haven't been given by the county commission or the mayor enough information to relinquish this board's control of the dollars that would go to it from an operating standpoint, and relinquish that to debt service that I don't see the need of, quite frankly. So I understand wanting our support, and wanting the municipality support, and I think they're doing a good job on that. I don't know, in doing this, we're supporting a 3-year number, and I don't know if that number could, in my discussions with at least the city of Brentwood, that's not the number of years that they did. They wanted it to end at some point, but that's a shorter number of years than they mentioned. So I think there's too many outstanding questions that I would like to hear answered, and I would love, if it's appropriate, to invite the mayor and maybe some of the commissioners to a work session to talk about this topic. And I'm willing to do it in July if we need, prior to their meeting, if timing is of the essence. I'm not comfortable, and I would like to move that we defer that.
Okay, Mr. Galbraith's made a motion to defer. We need a second on that. Second. We have a second. Ms. McGraw seconded the motion. Okay, and it is a debatable one. Mr. Mitchell, you were up there to speak. Did you want to speak to this?
Sure. My comments were for the amendment, but or for the most original resolution, but I'll speak to the amendment. I'm in support of the amendment to back it out. And I would be in support of a July meeting if we needed to get together to address this issue. I would like to make the statement that I was coming into this or our work session, I guess I was against this resolution because I feel like this is sales tax increase is not the way I would like my county commission to fund our capital needs. But I want to point out again, as I did in the work session, that Dr. Burgos made an excellent point that we are partners with our commissioners and we are on the same team. And they are, I guess, with this resolution, making a sincere effort to find a way to fund our schools and to fund our budget. And so I will ultimately, I believe, once we get the additional information, be inclined to support what is necessary to fund our district. But like Jay, I want to see a little bit more information on where the numbers were and if 60 million towards debt service is truly what is necessary over 3 years to get us to a point to where we're not going to have to go back and forth on our budgets like we did this year. I'd like to have that opportunity before we give away 3 years worth of increased operating revenue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Cash?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a pretty simple question. Does it really matter? Can the county commission, since they hold the purse strings, do pretty much what they want? I mean, we rely on them for our money. We put together budgets, and I know there's been a lot of cuts and probably more to come, but I also see municipalities and the county commission and the school board doing their due diligence for the whole county and really looking at money now. That's one positive from this. I do agree to a certain extent with Mr. Galbraith. You know, it would be nice to be able to see a little bit more in what their thinking is in this. But in all actuality, do they need this tonight? Or can it truly wait? Or will it even make a difference? And I guess that question is for you, Dr. Looney.
Yes, sir. Well, I will be honest with you. The mayor was planning on coming tonight, and I told him that I didn't think it was necessarily necessary. I don't. You're right, Mr. Cash. The county is our funding body, and at the end of the day, they're going to have to fund our operational expenses regardless of what resource they use to do that. Now, it is a true statement that money has been exceedingly tight, and this is, as I said earlier, this is the tightest budget year that we've ever had. From my perspective, a delay would complicate matters. The mayor has indicated he needs us to act first. Although we're not acting, we're not passing, you don't have the authority to pass a tax increase. We're saying that we would partner with the county and give our share back to schools for construction of schools. So it would just be moving money from operations to debt. It's still school expenditures. The mayor indicated to me that it was necessary to get our support up front before he got agreement from all the municipalities, and then once everybody else was on board, then he would take it to the county commission for ratification and their consideration. You know, I think the question is, what comes first? Do you have everything worked out before you take it to the county commission to seek approval, or do you go to the county commission and seek approval before you have the necessary commitments? And I think the mayor's course of action has been, let me see if I can get everybody that could participate, and then I'll take it to the county commission for consideration. Long term, from my perspective, after the 3-year period, assuming that the residents of Williamson County pass a sales tax increase, and that is a big if, but if they were to do that, then 3 years from now, then obviously there would be a significant amount of additional revenue coming in for operational expense. So, but it's certainly your decision.
Thank you. Ms. Emerson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jay, for making that, bringing that to the attention of all of us, that we have an opportunity to gather some more information. And I want the county commissioners to know that we are very sincere in our intention to partner and participate with them. But I also think that it's important that we do our due diligence to a point that we feel very comfortable jumping into this boat with them. And I think it's not in our best interest to not get the answers that some of us have, just to allay any concerns or fears or whatever about this partnership with them. I mean, you're absolutely right that, you know, we don't have any money of our own. And I think that it is a good vote of confidence for us to step forward and to show them that we intend to work with them on this. But I also think that it would also be in our best interest to get the mayor and to come and sit down and talk with us and answer some of these questions to help us understand better where it's coming from and what our responsibility is going to be and what we can anticipate to gain from this partnership with them. So I thank you for that, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I see it, and I had some misgivings when this was presented as well, the County Commission is the funding body. If they need a tool to provide additional flexibility, I'm not inclined to stand in their way. I would like to have Plan B and Plan C readily available should this not come to fruition. But I also think that they are good partners with us. When the impact fee was proposed, that was going to prevent borrowing, that was going to be used directly for capital expenditures, and they've modified that in light of new calculations to put that toward debt service. So I feel confident that they would be continuing the discussions and receptive to our feedback should those needs change. And I think that we would be able to have a very productive dialogue, and if they think they need this tool to go forward with this possible plan, I'm comfortable with it.
Thank you. Mr. Wimberly?
I think this is a very straightforward proposition. It's not complicated at all. And I think that it doesn't change what's going to happen 3 years down the road. It doesn't change what's going to happen in the next year or so. We're still going to need operating expenses. They're still going to go up. We're going to need to continue to get a significant amount of capital for construction. The County Commission is very aware of that. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be talking about a sales tax increase. What this amounts to, in my view, is basically a bookkeeping adjustment. So I would encourage us to move forward with this. And if we delay, it has a cyclical effect that could, in effect, impair, the Commission's ability to use this as a possible, I underline possible, source for funding.
Thank you. Ms. McGraw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support the motion to defer. I, too, would be fine with getting together in July if we need to with the mayor and the commission to better understand plans for this. After processing after the work session, it feels like we are agreeing as a body to move funds that would be available for operating expenses to fund capital expenses, if I'm understanding this correctly. But I don't fully understand the plan to fund our operating expenses, so I'm hesitant to just sign off on moving what may be available to capital without knowing the plan to provide the revenue that we all know is needed for the operating that are growing every year. And frankly, you know, I do feel like this is a little bit symbolic, and I am happy to be a good partner in whatever way is necessary, but we just did something that wasn't symbolic and cut millions of dollars from next year's operating expenses in a way that I do not believe is best for our staff and our students. And that's why I voted against that reduction, because frankly, I think we have acted in good faith for a very long time in making do with what's been given to us, and we have reached the point of diminishing returns for our student population, and I'm not okay with it. So I think we need to defer this until we can have a bigger picture discussion with the commission and the mayor and talk about the game plan for next year's operating expenses. If the sales tax passes, what does that mean? There's a bigger picture discussion. That rubber stamping a memorandum that we don't have any control at the end of the day over, I think we've done our good faith part, and I would like to be a part of a bigger conversation before moving forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Burgos?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am in support of the original motion as we discussed at the work session for reasons that I mentioned at the work session, because they are our funding body. We are partners. I do like the amendment, however, because it was my understanding that the county commission was asking us to partner with them, when in fact it sounds like this is, the process was a little bit different, and that the mayor wanted to come and appeal to us, and it sounds like he wants to get other municipalities to support based on our support. So I do wish he would have come this evening, but I know there, you know, you thought you had the support for it, and I get that. Provided that we could quickly get that information and move forward, I would be in agreement with the amendment, because I like to have all the information. I don't like surprises. But my overall impression is that I want to do all I can to partner with the county commission to help fund our schools.
Thank you. Ms. Garrett?
Just a quick note. I think that we have seen some historic partnerships in the last several months with municipalities coming forward, and I also think that the citizens are engaged in this issue, and I think that times are changing, and like my cab driver said to me one time on my way home from a trip, life changes and we must change with it. And I think we're at that point in this county where we as public officials have to make some changes and have to have some of these conversations that Ann was talking about, overall strategic direction and where we're going. However, I think that what I've seen with the county commission over the past several months is that I feel like we've established a relationship of trust. I've seen them include us in, you know, learning about the budget. You know, participation with their financial expert and working together. And so I would not be in favor of delaying this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of points and then one question. I would I agree. I too would like to have a larger discussion, I guess, with the chairman and maybe the finance committee and the education committee from the county commission over what their long-term vision is on funding for us, given our knowledge of what our growth rate is going to be. I think there would be some value in all of us sitting down and having that type of work session style discussion. I'll also point out that I would be willing, we don't have to wait till, if we get that information, I don't think we have to wait till July to act on it. We've got a couple more weeks of June left that we could potentially do another called meeting or something if necessary to get this done. I do not want to be an inhibitor to what the county commission needs to do to fund this and take this to the municipalities. And I get the fact that they're wanting us to be the lead body to make the statement, but I also think it's fair for us to ask for some vision of where they're seeing the funding going down the next 3 years, given the fact that we have agreed tonight to reduce our budget by 5 to 8 million, if I remember correctly. So the question I have is, the number that's been thrown out on this is about a little over 8 million a year. Can we get clarification if that number is correct? So we were talking, I guess, over a 3-year, maybe, I guess actually maybe it was 20 million a year or something is what this 0.5% sales tax is going to generate. Is that, are we understanding those numbers correctly?
I believe the estimate, Mr. Mitchell, is approximately $20 million a year.
And that's what they would get from just our piece, or is that our piece plus the municipality's piece?
I believe that's in total, everybody's contribution. Mrs. Holman is correcting me. So, Ms. Holman, if you have additional information.
I can't get this open.
And so I'll yield my time to while Ms. Holman gets that together. But
yes.
Anyway, I just wanted to make those points. Thank you.
Dr. Lee, do you want to address something?
Maybe after everybody's discussing, I can just make a final comment, sir.
Okay. Ms. Holman, did you?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go and look through an email to try to get it. I can't get it to open down here.
Okay, so where we are right now is, as we wait for Ms. Holman to get the information, is we have a motion to defer until August. We have a motion and a second to defer until August, and that's what we're talking about at this point. We're not on the main motion yet. This is just a defer.
Thank you.
Do you still have speakers? Mr. Anderson, I think if while you're waiting, the actual document is in your packet, I believe, the last page.
Yeah, but I didn't see where that summed it up.
Page 5 of 5 under the, yeah, it's there.
Okay, it is page 5. Okay.
What I read, I don't see where the 10 million is the sum of, that's the monthly.
Ms. Holman, do you have it now?
Does he want it in total or just for our part going into operational?
Do both if you have both.
Ms. Holman, would you like us to move on to other things to give you a chance to work that out? All right. Mr. Mitchell, do you have anything else to add?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Wimberly?
First, point of clarification. I think Dr. Looney laid out quite precisely and clearly on Thursday the sequence of events that would need to occur and what the mayor had asked us. By the way, the memo came from the mayor, and Dr. Looney was quite clear, I thought, in saying that this agreement then would be taken to the municipalities and then, to the county commission. So that's one point. But I think a more important point is to the bigger discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the bigger discussion. We told the county commission not terribly long ago that we were going to need $500 million in construction over the next 10 years. And that our operating expenses would go up rather significantly in each of those years. The county commission passed an impact fee that would help mitigate the issue, but it was pretty clear that the impact fee was not going to handle all of the demand that we were putting on the county. Property taxes went up. Still, that wasn't enough. So there is a proposal out there to ask the community to whether the community would like a sales tax increase to help fund the schools, and we're being asked to make a commitment that, in my opinion, is not that material. It has no impact on anything else that we would need. So I have a high level of confidence that the mayor would not have brought this to us at this particular time if the timing wasn't important, and I believe a delay would be contrary to our participation in the bigger discussion. This is how we participate in the bigger discussion. Please, let's not defer this.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Emerson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know, but I'm assuming that overall, I think this is going to pass and that the mayor will have our support. Asking for some clarification before we take that jump, I do not think is unreasonable. And I agree with Mr. Mitchell that in fact we could, if the mayor would meet with us, we could hold a meeting then and vote one way or the other and expedite this. I really am not in favor of deferring until July or even, because we still have some of June left. So if we could do it expeditionally and get it done, I don't understand. I'm not real sure I can explain this to some of my constituents, why we are doing this. And I don't have a sense that this is the right thing to do without a few questions answered. And I don't want to compromise myself by jumping into something that I'm not terribly certain about.
Thank you. Dr. Looney?
Well, I feel like I owe both the mayor and y'all a tremendous apology. The mayor was fully prepared to come here tonight, as was Nina, the budget individual, or CFO. I honestly, based on our discussion that we had Thursday night, didn't see a need for him to come, and I apologize to him and to you for that, because I wasn't expecting this. I certainly want you to make an informed decision. I think we have to be, my guidance to you, that's all I can do is give you guidance. My guidance to you is this: we tell the county commission all the time, you fund us and don't operate our schools. That's our job. We tell them that all the time. Their job is to fund schools, our job is to operate them. I think we have to be careful now to go back to them and say, let me tell you how you're going to fund our schools, because that's their job. And so if the mayor has a proposal to get us the funding that we need, as a citizen, I can certainly weigh in and I can talk to my county commissioner, but ultimately the county commission's responsibility is to fund our schools. That's not our job. Our job is to request what we need and to spend the money as wisely as we possibly can. And nobody can argue that we do that. I'm fearful of us getting into the business of telling the county commission how to go about funding our schools, because that's their responsibility. That's why they were elected to office. And I know that I don't want to throw cold water on the discussion, but let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have an approved budget yet. We don't have an improved capital budget or an operational budget. Nothing is done. And so if we're in the relationship business and we've asked to be a partner, and then we say, well, not so fast, then that could have additional implications on our partnership as well. I don't think the mayor would kill our budget, but I mean, it certainly complicates matters when at least there's a perception there. So perhaps you would be satisfied. I'm positive the mayor would agree to a meeting with you and me or whoever else it would be, but I don't know that a deferral necessitates. I mean, I don't know that you need to defer in order to get that meeting. I'm positive he will meet with you and discuss any concerns that you have. And obviously there's a bunch of other steps that have to happen along the way. I mean, 51% of the citizens of Williamson County have to say they want a sales tax increase, right? So, but I certainly respect your perspective, and y'all do what you think you need to do.
Okay, Ms. Holman, you want to?
For us, it would be, if it was only going to go up by 0.25, it would be almost $6 million a year. If it was going to go up to the full rate of 2.75, it would have been $11.6 million a year. Just to save time, the bigger contributors would be City of Brentwood. They'll get an additional 1.6 million at the lower rate, and 3.2. That's how much they would be given in. And if the City of Franklin, who is the other major contributor, would be 3.3 at the lower rate and 6.6 at the higher rate. The rest are negligible, and Fairview already gives theirs. Well, I'm not saying negligible because any amount counts, but I'm just in the interest of speeding up the meeting.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Galbraith?
Yes, so Dr. Looney, I completely agree that we want. I don't think anybody said that we don't want to partner with the county, and that I hate that the mayor offered and didn't come. So I would love the opportunity to do that. Nobody's going to begrudge us from the commission standpoint or the public. I don't think anybody's hearing us say that we don't want to help the county commission come up with the funding for the schools. This is all about the schools. This whole sales tax is about the schools. I think I'm not doing my fiduciary responsibility to the schools if I give away dollars that are by statute dedicated toward the operations of the schools, to give money to pay for capital until that capital need is presented before me, because based on my numbers, I don't think we need it. So $11 million a year to go to the operations would be a fight that they would, if the county commission wanted to not fund our budget next year, they would have to actually reduce the number of property tax pennies that are going towards the budget, because if this was implemented, we would be given these $11 million if the people chose to implement a sales tax increase upon themselves at a referendum. So I think there's plenty of time to talk. I think having a discussion after we pass the referendum is a little like passing the bill before we read it, right? And so I look forward to that conversation. I'm sure that will happen.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett.
While we were on our technology break, I consulted press reports about whether or not this has been before the county commission, and this was before the tax study committee on Tuesday, May 16th, and did pass with votes from Commissioners Lawrence and Commissioners Ford. So there was some earlier discussion about whether or not it had been before the commission, and just wanted to point out that it has been, and that it's been in the press, so that the county commissioners are aware the sales tax resolution.
Thank you. Dr. Burgos?
I would like to call the question, please.
Okay, we've motion to call the question. We need a second. We have a second from Mr. Cash. This is not debatable, correct?
That's correct.
So we just take a vote, and we need to do a voice vote on this one? I'm sorry.
Clarify the vote, please.
We're calling the question to vote, to stop discussion, to vote on Mr. Galbraith's motion to defer. Right?
The vote that the chair just mentioned is exclusively a vote on the calling for the question.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, does everybody understand? We're just
for call
to stop discussion on it. Okay? All right, do we need to go around? Do we need to go around person by person?
Yeah, if you don't have it.
Yeah, we don't. Can we do it on the machine? No. Okay, we'll go around, do a voice vote on each person, please.
Angela Durham. Yes. Dane Cash. Yes. Elliot Mitchell.
Yes.
Ann McGraw. Yes. Gary Anderson.
Yes.
Jay Galbraith.
Yes.
Sheila Cleveland. Yes. Andy Emerson. Yes. Rick Wimberly.
Yes.
Beth Burgos.
Yes.
Casey Hall.
Yes.
Nancy Garrett.
Yes.
Okay, then question has been called, so we are now going to be voting on the motion to defer this resolution until August. It was made by Mr. Galbraith and second by Mr. Mitchell. Is any...
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a point of
Go ahead. Your mic's on now.
process? I guess that's not the correct term, but you know. Point of order here. The motion to defer, I believe, requires a date, a deferment date, or potentially a deferment to the next meeting, maybe is what the intent was. Can I get clarification on that, please?
That was my motion to our next meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Galbraith had said to the August meeting.
Well, let's be clear. Are we talking August meeting or next meeting?
So to your point, the executive committee does have the power to schedule a special called meeting. They can put something on the agenda if they choose. Is that what you're referring to?
So my question was, what is the deferment? What's the date of deferment?
I got you.
Time of deferment maybe is a better way of phrasing that.
Okay, I understood it to be the August meeting. Mr. Galbraith, if you would please clarify.
That at the time the August meeting was the next meeting. I did say that I would be open to having a meeting before that. So if there's a parliamentary way to do that, then I'm completely open. But if I would say August meeting, and then if the executive committee wants to choose a meeting prior to that, then we can do that. So.
Okay, so we're voting on this to be at the August work session and then board meeting. All right, so that is the question before us at this time, is to defer this motion until the August work session and then the official vote at the board meeting, at the August board meeting. Does everyone understand? Did I say that clear enough?
Yes, to defer.
Yes, the motion is to, so a yes means to defer, a no means not to defer. Okay, Dr. Looney, your recommendation?
I do not recommend deferring.
Okay, if you go ahead and record your votes.
The vote is 3 yes, 9 no.
Okay, then we're back. Did we have an original motion on this?
Yes,
we did. Okay, then we're back on the original motion, the memorandum of understanding with Williamson County Government on sales tax. Any further discussion on the original motion? Okay, I see none. And Dr. Looney, your recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, I do recommend approval.
All right, if you go ahead and record your votes then, please.
Your vote is 10 yes, 1 no, 1 abstain.
All right, thank you, Board. Our next item is recommendation of additional 2017-2018 school fee. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, we had a great discussion about this to simplify your work. We're recommending that we install a field trip user fee that will encompass all field trips throughout the year unless they go over the $100 limit. Do recommend approval of this.
Okay, anyone like to make a motion on this one? We have a motion from Ms. Durham. Anyone like to second? Second, Mr. Wimberly, was that you? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe you said it and I missed it. We discussed, I guess, at our work session to change this to $100. Is that where we are? Or was
Yes, sir, that's correct. $100. Everything $100 or less will not come directly to the board. It will automatically be approved with this amendment to the fees.
All right, thank you.
Ms. McGraw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, when we say that it doesn't get approved by the board, there's still an approval process that all field trips go through with district staff?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? Okay, I see none. You have the director's recommendation. If you'd go ahead and record your votes, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next item is Strategic Plan 2017 through 2024. Dr. Looney.
Board members, thank you so much for the work that you've done, and I want to thank the community that participated. I think Mr. Wimberly probably has some comments, but I do recommend approval of this document to guide our work for the next 7 years.
We have a motion for approval from Mr. Wimberly, second from Ms. Emerson. Any discussion? Mr. Wimberly, I'm pushing your button for you.
I just want to say, wow, what a process this was and what a positive thing it was for the community. I would say we got input from thousands of people into what they wanted to see for the vision for Williamson County Schools going forward. And in reality, that vision has changed in some cases. And the strategic plan, which since the public has seen it, now has goals associated with the main thrust of the plan. And I would encourage the public to become familiar with what the public has said and what our staff has come up with, our committee, and just an enormous group of stakeholders has said that they want from the schools. So please become familiar with it. I can say, based on experiences with the last strategic plan, community, you can be assured the school board will be using this strategic plan with to kind of help us with every decision that we make. Staff will be using it. Our teachers will be using it. This is really a big deal. And I'm real proud, to have been associated with the development of it. In fact, Dr. Looney, I think I would ask if maybe our communications department, if they haven't already, will put together a program to socialize this and make this knowledgeable to the people in the community.
Yes, sir. I certainly, Ms. Birdsong is already on it, and I want to thank Ms. Emerson. I think she came to every single meeting. So.
Yeah, we had a lot of participation. Dan, anything you'd like to add, or anyone else who was on the committee?
Yeah, thanks, Rick. It's been a pleasure working with everyone in this room on this project. There was so much feedback, and I feel like the board has really come together as a team, both in the strategic plan, also with zoning, and every other big obstacle we've covered this year. And again, the strategic plan worked out well, and we had a great facilitator. We had a lot of fun, and I think everyone here learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Galbraith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank both Rick and Liz, Alan Fay. She did a phenomenal job, exceeded my expectations as far as It would have been easy to come in and take our last strategic plan and just kind of tweak the edges a little bit, but she pretty much, she didn't throw it away, but she made us articulate it in our own words, through the words of all the people that came and gave their feedback, and we really did come up with a brand new plan. Now it's going to look and feel a lot different because it wasn't just the same categories. I mean, we completely did a bottom-up approach. This wasn't a, well, let's just roll forward to the next period. And I think we got a lot out of it, and I was really grateful to go through the process.
Okay, Mr. Wimberly?
If I could just say one more thing, and I'd like to read the vision, mission, and the strategic commitments, which the public may not be aware of. These have been developed by the staff and the board quite recently. Our vision: Williamson County Schools will provide a supportive environment where students are challenged to pursue excellence in academics, athletics, and the arts. And let me assure all that every word of this was carefully considered and fervently debated. And I think if we approve this, I think that will be our stamp of approval that the debate is over and this is where we want to go. The mission: we exist to provide all students with a quality education that supports their intellectual, physical, emotional, and social development. Same thing there, very carefully considered. Our strategic commitments: we will invest in team quality and excellence. We will improve student-centered operational support systems, and we will prepare students for the future. I rest my case.
Anyone else willing to speak? Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve our strategic plan for 2017 to 2024, and I too would like to thank Mr. Wimberly for his leadership on this. Awesome job. Thank you so much for taking this and leading us forward through it. It's been a great process, and we have your recommendation on this, Dr. Looney. There's no other discussion. Then if you'd go ahead and record your votes.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you very much, Board. Congratulations to everyone involved with this and to our community. This is a tremendous layout plan for what we will do with our school system now into the future. All right, we're into our board policies first reading. Our first one is 3.206.
Got meeting dates.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I skipped one. Our board meeting dates, the 2017-2018 school board meeting dates. Anyone like to make a motion on those that we looked at last Thursday? Motion for approval from Ms. McGraw. A second from Mr. Ha. Any discussion on our board meeting proposed dates? I see none. Dr. Looney, your recommendation?
Yes, sir. We'll be here to help you out.
All right. That sounded like a definite support
Yes, sir.
of that. Okay. Thank you. If you'd go ahead and record your votes then, Board.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
All right, now we can go to board policies, first reading. 3.206, community use of school facilities. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. These are for first reading only. We had a considerable amount of debate last Thursday night into the almost wee hours of the morning. I do recommend approval of these upon first reading. Once again, this is first reading only.
Anyone like to make a motion on this first policy, 3.206? We have a motion for approval from Mr. Mitchell, second by Mr. Cash. Any discussion? Okay, I see none. If you'd go ahead and record your votes then, you do have the director's recommendation for approval.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, Board. Next one is 3.216, athletic facilities. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, I recommend approval of this too. Once again, it's first reading only. I'm sure we'll have additional debate about this at the next policy meeting.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion on this one for first reading. We have a motion for Ms. Cleveland. Anyone second? We have a second for Ms. Garrett. Any questions, discussions, debates? Okay. We have the director's recommendation. If you go ahead and record your votes then, please.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, Mr. King. Next one is 3.604, public records request. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, as the legal counsel has indicated, this is required under new state law. I do recommend approval of this. This is almost verbatim from the law, so recommend your approval.
Anyone like to make a motion on this one? We have a motion from Ms. Emerson. Anyone like to second it? We have a second from Mr. Cash. Any discussion? Mr. Galbraith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very briefly, I know we've said it at this podium several times that we don't want to make it a practice to reiterate state law in policy, but in this case, it's actually clarified in state law that this must be our policy. So we're.
Okay, and this one's about 5-6 pages long? Yeah, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we have the director's recommendation. If you go ahead and record your votes.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The next one is 5.3021, sick bank teachers. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, this limits the amount of sick bank a teacher may use for one occurrence to 180 days. I do recommend approval of this change. This is first reading.
Anyone like to make a motion on this one? We have a motion from Mr. Mitchell. Like to second it? Dr. Burgos, second. Any further discussion on this one? Dr. Burgos.
Point of clarification, I think this is for the maximum number of days that someone is employed, not just per occurrence.
You're right, I apologize.
It's all right.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay, I see none. You have the director's recommendation. If you go ahead and record your votes.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Our next one is 5.608, tutoring for pay. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, there was a need to clarify how we govern employees who tutor for pay. This is first reading of the policy. I do recommend approval. Look forward to additional discussion about this matter.
Anyone like to make a motion on this one? Motion from Ms. Cleveland. Anyone like to second it? Second from Ms. Durham. Any further discussion? Okay, I see none. If you go ahead and record your votes, you do have the director's recommendation.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Our next one is board policy for editorial change, and it's 4.6051, credit requirements for graduation. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, this is for an editorial change only. This requires only one reading. I do recommend approval of this editorial change to this proposed policy.
Anyone like to make a motion? We have a motion from Ms. Emerson. I'd like to second it. Second from Ms. Durham. Any discussion on this editorial change on this policy? Okay, I see none. You have the director's recommendation. If you go ahead and record your votes.
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, Board. I'd like to thank the Policy Committee that goes through all these policies every month, and then as we get them in our work session, obviously, there's a lot of policies in our book, and thank you, Ms. McGraw, for leading that committee. All right, I don't see anything else on our agenda. Dr. Looney, do you have anything else?
Happy belated Father's Day to the gentleman on the board.
Thank you, sir. All right, then we will see you in August. Thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.